Hi guys, I finally have my language video for you. So if you're writing a fantasy novel and you're kind of on the fence about whether or not you want to create a language, I would seriously consider doing it. Rocky stretch. And here's why. Because you've spent a lot of time, I'm sure, world building and figuring out your technology and the society and the people and what they wear and what they look like, and you've figured out all of these things. But language is what everyone uses to communicate with each other. It is very important in each society. If you skip creating a language and you just use English or whatever language that you're writing in, then it's going to detract a little bit from the world that you've built. You want to completely submerge them, and part of that is the language. Anyway, here are 4 tips that you guys can use to create your own language. Number 1, choose a root language. Some languages flow easier on the tongue than other languages. Think French versus German or Russian. The latter tends to have sharper words and a lot of consonants that are clustered together with fewer vowels. You could really spend days and days researching and breaking down exactly what makes each language unique, or you could just cheat and skip all the research. Choose an already existing language that you want to model your language after. Now, there's over 6,900 languages in the world, so one of them is bound to be the perfect fit for your novel. Now, if you're never sure how a language sounds, if you're kind of just looking at a list of languages, YouTube it. There will be a million different examples. If you type Tagalog, you're gonna have a lot of examples that you can sift through. You can also take this one step further and combine 2 different languages into one. So the benefit of using a pre-existing language is that we already associate some of those phonetic sounds with different regions or with different peoples. So I'm gonna have you read a sentence. I'm gonna put it on the screen and actually read it. I'm gonna awkwardly sit here for a minute while you guys read it, and here it is. See if you can read it. Do it. Actually try to read it, because this is an example. Disclaimer, I don't know what that sentence meant. I should have said that beforehand, but I hope it wasn't inappropriate. What would be your guess to the ethnicity of that speaker? If you guessed a Native American language, Navajo to be specific, you would be correct. So what I'm trying to prove here is that the association of a sound in a particular language is a strong tool that you should use. So the movie Avatar, which parallels the Western advancement into Native American land, uses a fantasy language called Na'vi. Even that word right there looks like our previous example, looks like that sentence I made you read. This helps the reader or the viewer to draw some subconscious idea of what that character or what that society is like. And that almost tricks the reader or the viewer into thinking that it's a more realistic world, because they're kind of the ones that are making these conclusions on their own. So you can use that to your advantage and not only choose a language that phonetically sounds like what you would imagine your society speaking like, but culturally parallels a language in our own society. The language shouldn't just exist in your novel, it should multitask. It should help the reader get a better idea using a language that is familiar to them. So make use of those existing languages in your novel. Number 2, spruce up the word. When you're creating a word and you like how it sounds, look at how you spelled it and then kick that up a notch. How exactly can you do this? In my Navajo example, you could see that there seems to be a lot of accents or vowels that are right next to each other, or just vowels in general. It's very vowel heavy. Those are characteristics of that language, and you want to do something similar for your own language. So you can use double vowels, you can use double consonants, you can use those accent marks, you can end your verbs in V, or you can start your formal names with mo. Again, you can kind of look to your root language and see how they typically do things and kind of just tweak or move things around. These noticeable characteristics show a cohesiveness with your language. This is really helpful if you have more than one language in your novel, because a reader can see language A and they can tell it apart better from language B. Now, in a minute, I'll completely go over what it takes to create a new word, but right now we're just going to see how we can spruce up a word. So we're going to pick pretty generic words. Example 1, applesauce. That's a pretty innocent word, right? Wrong. That's what it could look like. I went a little crazy there, but you get the idea. A version I would more readily use looks like this. What can we learn from this? You can take any word and apply it to your own language with just a few tweaks. Once you get the basis for a word that you like, be sure to characterize it so that it fits into the other fantasy words of your novel. Kira wants to put in her 2 cents. Not all of your words should have double vowels or whatever trait you choose to use, but they should generally sound like they belong together. Number 3, get inspired. Perhaps my favorite tip that I've already given to you guys in a previous video is to take an already existing word and change it, particularly a word that you already love. Keep a list on your phone or in a notebook of every word that you come across that sounds phonetically pleasing to you. This can be very subjective. I may like one word and you may hate it, but that's totally fine. That's not what we're doing here. You just need to find words that you love that will inspire you. Now take that word and deconstruct it. Why do you like it? What part of that word sounds the best to you? Is it the way the word ends, or is it the way it begins with a feathery little touch? Now keep that part of the word and change some of the letters around. And now that you've already chosen a theme, it helps you to reconstruct this word. All right, here are some examples. I'm gonna show them on the right over here in a list so you guys can see exactly my thought process and each word variation that I came up with before I settled on one I liked. It takes a lot of trial and error. The word I'm going to use is okra. It's a word I love. I also love the food, but I just like the word okra. Since this is a shorter word, this will go a little differently, but it's a good example to use for that reason. I like how those first 3 letters sound because I know I also like the word ochre. So for this example, we're gonna lengthen the word a little bit. The first word I came up with was ocreel. That one wasn't my favorite. I quickly crossed it off the list. Ocrail. That kind of sounds and looks a little bit too much like oracle for me, so on to the next one. Ocrillo. That just sounds like a Brillo pad to me. All right, those weren't working, so let's change the spelling. It still reads okra, but the letters are different. Okrilla. That one sounds like gorilla to me, so no. The last word, okrilla, is one that I like, but we can make it more original. This is where you use step 2. So this is where you spice it up a little bit. So I literally just brainstormed those things. I tried to think of different letter combinations. I like the ochre. Okay, what can we use after that R? Has to be a vowel, and sometimes I'll look at my keyboard just to make sure I'm not missing any letters. Okay, so let's take this a step further. Make sure you have another rolling list, not just words that you really like, but also words that you really hate. Words that sound ugly to you. They're just like nails on a chalkboard. They're hideous. You can use those words for the bubbling gorge of hell in your novel, or the villain's name. The word I chose was unctuous. I hate that unct part at the beginning of the word. I just hate it. It sounds like a troll grunting. It's gross. So let's brainstorm. Unctula. I kind of liked that one, but let's just keep going. Punctual. This sounds a lot like punctual, and this will happen to you, but that's okay. Keep it on your list and keep going. See what you can make of it. Unctroll. I used the word troll in it. Yay. Just kidding. Next. Unctrag. I like the addition of the G to this one, but not this word. Unctragul. I like that one, but it's too long. Unctuga. It's so ugly that I love it. That's the one that I chose. Now you can try some different spellings of it. You can try a K or 2 Gs or 2 Us or add some little accents in there, whatever your characteristic was. My last tip, tip number 4, is don't get caught up. You know that I have said research is your friend? This is where we can kind of blur that line a little bit. You're making the rules here. If somebody contacts you later and says that your language is phonetically or linguistically incorrect, then so be it. Not everyone will like your novel, and that's okay. If they don't like your novel because of your choice of words, then maybe they can go take a hike and remember that they chose to read a fantasy novel. It's not real. My point is, don't worry so much about what other people think. Most readers are going to be pretty impressed that there is an original language in that novel. They're not going to nitpick and get all crazy about it, so you don't get crazy about it. Also, if you're engineering an entire language, think about this. Not all readers are going to read that entire sentence that you write down. If it's in another language, people might not take the time to try to read the phonetics and to try to pronounce it themselves. I know, that kind of takes away the whole point of me even trying to tell you how to create your own language, but hear me out. That fact is supposed to take some of the stress away from making a perfect language. You may stress over whether or not to use an O or an A in a word, when in reality, your readers aren't going to notice it. How many of you didn't read that Navajo example I put on the screen earlier? Be honest, because I know there was at least a handful of you, and you didn't even try. Kira would have tried. She would have tried really hard if she could just read. I feel like you're about to scratch me. Frequently, if it looks too complicated to try to pronounce, most people will skim over it in their haste to find out what happens next in your novel. Some will read it, which is why you do need to put forth some effort, but you don't need to stress over it too much. Have fun, you're creating a language. So, just make your language as perfect as you can without losing your mind because of it. That's some awesome advice, right? The important thing is to make your common words sound real. If you're using 1 or 2 or 3 words repetitively throughout your novel, then yes, try to make those as perfect as you can and ask for other people's input. That's a big tip right there. You're gonna be looking at this page and these words for so long that you're not even gonna remember who you are anymore. They're all gonna sound the same to you. So when you get to a word and you're like, I don't know, am I crazy for liking this word? Does this word sound hideous? Ask a friend. Your loved ones tend to think it's cool that they're helping create a language. All right, that's all I have for you guys today. I really hope that that helps you guys in creating your own languages because it's a fun process and I think that you just have to experiment with it. Just come up with different letter combinations and word combinations until you find something that just fits for you. Be sure to subscribe to my channel because I post new writing videos every Wednesday, and go and check out all the other writing videos that I have on my channel because I have a ton of them. If there's something there that I haven't covered and you want me to cover, be sure to drop a line down below or in any one of my other videos and I will put it on my list. Bye guys. Oops, my camera fell.